This is Jaguar Land Rover Classic in Coventry. Now, it's a multi-million-pound facility built just over a year ago, and it's designed to service, to restore, to rebuild and ultimately continue the legacy of Jaguar Land Rover's most famous models. Now, the general public do have access to this place, but we've got exclusive access for one afternoon only. Come and join me for the tour. And here we are. Now, if you like Jaguars and you like Land Rovers, you want to come here because this is such a special place. Now, there are three key pillars to Jaguar Land Rover Classic. It's restoration, it's continuation, and it's reborn. Let's start off with restoration, shall we? Now, this is a very special Jaguar XK140. Now, it started out in life in around 1955. Nothing special, just a very standard car. But in 1957, it was involved in a crash. So the body was taken off, a brand new body was put on, styled by Michelotti, the famous Italian car designer, and it's a one-off. And would you just look at it? So Italian looking at the front here, slightly cross-eyed as well, but it's a beautiful looking car. Now, it's not in the best of shapes. Jaguar Land Rover Classic bought it around a year ago at auction in Monaco. The previous owner of this car was actually an animal sanctuary, can you believe? And that's not original patina. That's an example of an older restoration that was never fully finished. But Jaguar Land Rover Classic can take it back to how it looked in 1957, and I, for one, cannot wait to see what it looks like. Now, over on my left is a Jaguar D-Type, but it's not any normal Jaguar D-Type because it is brand new. Now, when Jaguar first created the D-Type, it won, as I'm sure you know, the Le Mans 24 Hours in 1955, 56 and 57. Now, the intention was to build 100 cars, but they only built 75 of them. Now, the remaining 25 cars were going to become XKSS's. That's the road-going version of the D-Type. But the Jaguar Browns Lane factory never finished all 25 cars thanks to a fire. But now they're back. Jaguar Land Rover Classic are going to build the original, the remaining 25 cars. This is the first one, and it is identical right down to the very last nut and bolt. It is simply magnificent. Now, the other pillar to Jaguar Land Rover Classic is its Reborn project. Now, the idea behind this is that you go to Jaguar Land Rover Classic and say, I'd like a Series 1 E-Type, please, and I'd like it in Carmine Red, please, with black interior trim. And Jaguar Land Rover Classic will dispatch its team of scouts all around the world, and they'll find a donor car just like this. Now, the types of cars they find have to be around 80 to 85% original, and what they'll do is they'll replace all of the parts that need to be replaced, and they're replaced with genuine blueprint original parts, brand new parts, but just the same as they were when this car was originally produced. They do upgrade items for safety, but what you get eventually is a totally brand new car, and a car that arguably is totally bespoke to you. It's not just Jaguars at JLR Classic Reborn, they also do the same with Land Rovers. Now, the first car they do is the Range Rover Series 1 two-door. And if you want one of these, you just come here and say, I'd like a two-door Range Rover, please. JLR Classic will send their scouts all around the world and find a good base car. Now, just like the E-Type, they'll replace all the body parts if needs be, and they'll also replace all the interior parts as well. They've had the original seating fabric made for this programme. They've had new dashboards made as well, because the old ones had a tendency to crack in the sun. Now, what you end up with is a car that is just as good as it was built in period, and probably the coolest ever SUV as well. It's not cheap, prices start around £135,000, but I mean, come on, this would look so cool in Knightsbridge, wouldn't it? But if this is a bit too pricey for you and a bit too modern, Land Rover also do exactly the same programme with the Series 1. Now, again, Jaguar Land Rover Classic will send their scouts around the world and find a good base Series 1. We've got two examples here. This one's from Australia. This is an original British car. And what they will do over a period of around 4 months, they will turn that into this. A totally pristine, modernised, in a good way, Series 1. Now, just like the Range Rover and the E-Type, they'll take a good base car, around 80 to 85% original, replace all of the aluminium body panels if needs be, and they'll improve the interior as well by giving it new seats, new steering wheel, new heater, the lot. Now, one example of how fastidious Jaguar and Land Rover Classic has been is the wheels. Now, before Jaguar Land Rover Classic, you couldn't buy these wheels. If you had a knackered set of original Series 1 steel wheels, you'd have to go and buy an off-the-shelf alloy wheel replacement, which, come on, looked pretty terrible. But Jaguar Land Rover Classic have gone to Australia, found the original blueprints, and got the original company to start making them again. That is an example of how focused Jaguar Land Rover Classic is on its heritage. This is around £75,000. It is a lot of money, but you end up with a car that is better than it used to be in period. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, this is the showroom. You've got fantastic examples of what you can end up with if you're prepared to spend the money. Let's go through into the next room to see where all the magic is. It's in here, though, where the magic really lies, because under one roof you've got all of Jaguar Land Rover Classic's servicing, restoration and Reborn projects. This is my favourite part of the facility because here is where the latest Jaguar Land Rover Classic continuation programme is. Now, it's the D-Type, and here we've got the aluminium shells. They're painted just here. Would you just look at the colour of this one? And here is the finished car, finished in a Courier Cross blue, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, built exactly how they would have been done in the mid-1950s. This is a good example just over here. Now, this one is almost built. Of course, it's lacking its rear end, but it's almost finished, and above it is the XKSS. Now, this programme started just before the D-Type programme, and it's almost finished. These are customer cars and they're almost done. Didn't I say this place was amazing?
This is a fully functioning workshop that's working on a number of projects at any one time. So there's the Land Rover Defender Works V8 programme in one corner, Reborn Series 1 Land Rovers and E-Type Jags in another, and then there's all the servicing and maintaining JLR Classic does too.
One of the real delights of being here is seeing the XJ220 in situ, how it would have been back in the late 1980s. Now, we've got two examples here. This one, it's absolutely fabulous, isn't it? Now, it's having service work. The owner's brought it in to have a full service on it. And would you just look at this? Now, I wouldn't normally talk to you about car covers, but this, as you can tell by this logo here, is one of the original covers, protection covers, that would have been used on the car back in the late 1980s. And it's that attention to detail that is so prevalent here at Jaguar Land Rover Classic. Actually, the heritage really shines through here because the types of people who work on these cars now are second generation people. They tend to be the sons of the original people who built the XJ220 back in the late 1980s. It's the same with all the other cars here. The E-Types, the D-Types, there are third and fourth generation people working here. And all of the stories that you walk around here and you listen to all the stories from all the engineers, from all the workers. It's just a place that is absolutely rich in history. It's such a special place. Here is a good example of exactly what Jaguar Land Rover Classic do, because we've got all of the E-Type Reborn programmes. You can see the familiar colour here. It's this fantastic gunmetal grey, and these are customer cars. They're almost done. We've got the classic Range Rovers here. We've got an early car that's been sourced, and this is a finished one here. And just to my left, we've got the other part of the operation, which is this servicing part of Jaguar Land Rover Classic. This is a customer car. They've come in for a bit of light restoration, and the same goes with this XJ8.
JLR Classic also has a body shop, engine shop and an upholstering room. It has everything to rebuild, maintain and restore Jaguars and Land Rovers. But there is also a secret part to JLR Classic.
It's in here, though, where things get really exciting, especially if you're a petrolhead, because behind this door is automotive paradise. Now in here is a collection, a very special collection. Around 2 years ago, Jaguar Land Rover bought the world's largest privately owned collection of British cars, and it's all housed in here. We've got things such as little toy cars right up to the big stuff. Now this car here is a good example of the amount of history there is in this place, because this is an Austin Swallow. Now Swallow, sidecar company, was exactly how Jaguar started off way back 70 plus years ago. And would you just look at this place? Words can't really describe it, can they? Now on this side, you've got all the Jaguars. It should really run in sort of chronological order. You've got the early Swallow cars running all the way through the early SS Jaguars, all the way up to the latter day stuff, more modern stuff. And on my right, we've got the same with all the Land Rovers, starting off with a very special car, Dell. It's a very famous Series 1, and it runs all the way down to the more recent Range Rovers. Just look at this stuff. Isn't it absolutely incredible? They just don't build cars like this anymore, do they? And over here on the right, you've got all of the history of Land Rover. You've got all the early Series 1s, right up to the very last Defender up there. Honestly, I could be here for hours, but I've got to keep this fairly brief because this is a video after all. But just look at it. XK120s, 150s, you've got a Daimler Dart up there because of course Jaguar bought Daimler in the 1960s, right up to the very latest Range Rovers. And up here, you will recognise this car if you're a bit of a film buff. It is of course the CX-75, the car that was used in James Bond's Spectre, the most recent James Bond film. Over here you've got some of the more famous Jaguar saloon cars, Mark I Jag, the Daimler V8 250, some of the lovely, lovely XJ6s. Look at this up here, personal favourite of mine. 5.2 litre V12 coupe, absolutely stunning, stunning car, worth quite a lot these days actually. But these cars over here are worth mentioning. Now this is a four-wheel drive prototype XJS, a one-off car, and this is Project F-Type, and I'm not talking about the current F-Type, I'm talking about the original F-Type, the car that was designed to replace the XJS back in the late 80s, early 90s. And if you know your car history, you will know that this car ultimately became the DB7. It was a Jaguar project. Ford bought both Jaguar and Aston Martin, and they moved this car to Aston Martin, and it became the famous DB7. You can see it looks very similar to that Aston Martin, doesn't it? And because that project was canned, this project started, and it was the XK8. And this is a hot weather testing car, still with its original camo on. This is just a piece of Jaguar history. And funnily enough, it's called the Beast, as you can see on the windscreen. And my gosh, does it look like a beast. And there we are. This is just automotive nirvana. Wonderful. Well, there we are then. That is Jaguar Land Rover Classic. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. My personal favourite is probably the brand new D-Type, but unfortunately I can't really afford to spend a seven-figure sum. The only thing I can afford is this little model of the first ever Series 1 Land Rover. So if you did like this video, make sure you give it the thumbs up and you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.